So starting, I know you kind of are a big proponent, with what you do of this idea of an AI sprint and this idea of, sort of rapid prototyping with AI. Maybe talk a little bit about that, and can you build AI prototypes quickly and cost effectively and that sort of thing?
Yeah, totally. I'm a big fan of the AI sprint. It's a methodology that we've been working on perfecting here within Big Plasma AI. We're drawing inspiration from the folks over at Google Ventures. They had a book called The Design Sprint. I have it here. Oh, Sprint.
Oh, I love that book. That's
Really
a
good
great
book.
book. Yeah.
Yeah, Design Sprint, and they have a really good framework for how to test new ideas very, very quickly in 5 days or less. So I think the sprint methodology works well for AI in part because, well, let's consider the other options. You don't want to do waterfall. I think that's a little bit too drawn out. And then you might say, like, well, what about agile, Manny? And I would say, well, agile, I think is really good for when you have a good sense of what the problem is and what the engineering solution is, and you just need to hack at it and you just crank out code. But I think AI and machine learning is a little bit more trial and error. It's more science in that way, right? Where you're trying different things, and you're testing different ideas, and then you're going to work. And so I felt like in my experience, agile falls a little bit short when it comes to working with AI and machine learning problems. The design sprint is a little bit of a better fit in my view, and we're trying to customize it for AI projects, and applications. Thus, the AI sprint terminology. So, what does that look like? So for me, an AI sprint is covered over 4 weeks. Week number one, we are getting to know the business. We're talking to the players, and we're collecting the data that's going to be necessary for the use case that we're going to be targeting. Week number two, we have three fairly intense workshops that happen with business leaders, marketing leaders, operators, and data folks. And what we're doing there is we're thinking about what is that North Star for this particular use case? Where do we want to be? And then thinking about the different solutions that we might prototype, and then settling on one particular prototype that we want to target over the next 2 weeks. And so after those 3 weeks, we have a good understanding of the context, and we know what we need to be targeting as data scientists, as AI professionals, to prove out or to disprove that particular hypothesis. And week three is about building and around prototyping and user testing. So in week three, we're doing two things. Number one is we're testing technical feasibility. So we're developing models, we're training them, we're getting the outputs of them to subject matter experts to get validation on those models. And we're also building UI to test the output of those models in the context that a user would see them. So I think this is really, really, really key. You just cannot test the output of a model in isolation. You have to put it in context. So we were working on a fraud detection type of model. We're not just outputting the percentage probability. We're putting it in the workflow of the folks that are responsible for flagging fraud detection, yes or no. And we're putting in that context. We're mimicking the UI and getting feedback from the frontline operators. So that's what we're doing in week three. We're validating, we're building the model, we're building the prototype, and we're testing with users. And then week four is about summarizing what we found, what we learned, coming together as a team, both my team and my client's team, and thinking about what went well, what didn't go so well, and handing over the work that we've done in those previous 3 weeks. So we're handing over all the code, all the documentation, all the user interviews, all the business process mapping, all of the workshop data. They get like a full complete package, and it's really great. I think by and large, like, I've been surprised how much value customers or clients have gotten from all the work aside from the modeling and then the AI, like all the like systems level thinking that we bring to play, the workshopping. Customers really love that. So we hand that over week four, and we answer any questions about the model, and we talk about how we might implement it, how we might scale it out. but that's sort of the basic 4-week summary there. And I like 4 weeks. I think, it depends on the company. Like if you're if you're a software company, if you're a lean company, 4 weeks might be a little bit long, but it's not too long. It's not too long for, like, having been in that space, it's not too long for a new AI solution or service. I think 4 weeks is, pretty good. But I think for most people, 4 weeks is a little bit on the fast side, which is good, because part of what we're trying to do with this, we're also trying to help companies build an innovation muscle. We're trying to help them think about how to be lean, how to be fast, how to workshop, how to come up with a prototype, how to vote on something, and how to spend less time talking and having these discussions and more time building and shipping and trying to actually build something and going through that motion. For some of my clients, when we've gone a little bit long, we maybe like have gone longer than we would have liked, and maybe have not gotten the result that we would have wanted. And that's okay. That's okay. If you're particularly early in your AI transformation journey and you can't move fast on this because you don't have the right data, or you don't have the right data professional, or you don't have the right documentation, or you weren't able to validate the business case, that's great. Let's learn from that. Let's sync up at week 4 and say, hey, relative to other use cases that we've seen in the space, you actually don't have this high of a quality of data. And so that's an action item for you and your team to go out and do that. And let's try to run the sprint again in 4 or 8 weeks and see if we can't go faster and can't make more progress in the same type of a time frame. And I really like it from that perspective, because I'm always advising my clients to not so much focus on the end goal of being innovative. Don't focus so much on that. I mean, that's important. But what you do have influence over is the process. What is your process for AI innovation, for machine learning innovation? What does that look like? What is your month to month? How are you doing that? And I think the AI sprint is a really good way to do that, to practice it, to measure it, and help you make incremental steps and progress towards that end goal of being data-driven and AI-driven.
Yeah, excuse me. That's really interesting. I think having the right process, a good framework in place is really helpful. And that seems like a really reasonable way to go about it. One of the questions I would imagine a lot of people would have, and certainly have had when I'm talking to companies and so on as well, is, and I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot here to come up with an example, but yeah. I think it could be very valuable to the people checking out this interview, and that is, give an example of a task or a use case that's too big for a design sprint or AI sprint, one that's too small, and one that's just right, all in the same sort of category, area. So let's say it's a marketing thing. In this case, you're more manufacturing, industry 4.0. But I think, if you're at the beginning and someone's wondering, okay, how do we think about the next 4 weeks? What are we trying to build? They're obviously not going to build an entire predictive maintenance system across the board for their entire fleet of, whatever. So maybe that's something too big, and I'm kind of leading here too much probably, but you see what I'm saying? What do you consider to be a good, just right, and what's a little too small and what's a little too big?
Great question. It's a very interesting question. What's too big? I would say that if you're trying to roll out a brand new service that you've never rolled out before, then that is too big, because you're testing not just the technical feasibility, you're also testing product market fit, you're also testing your infrastructure, and that's a much longer effort. So I have, if we have a client that is in fraud detection and they want to roll out a new service to their end users, then I think that's much too long. What's too short? If you're doing just simple data analysis and you're gathering data and you want to just learn, you want to do some EDA, exploratory data analysis, you're looking for trends, you're looking to just test the quality of your data, you're looking for some charts, some insights. To me, that's more of an assessment. That's sort of a 2-3 day type of thing. That's too small. What's just right is if you're testing out whether or not you have the potential, and whether you should move forward with a new product, and you're trying to test out the alignment within your organization. You're trying to test out whether or not you have the right data. You're trying to test out whether or not you have a sense, whether or not the algorithms are that are out there would support that, and you're trying to get an estimate as to what the tech stack would look like, and what the scale effort would look like. Then to me, that is a much more reasonable, just right fit for a 4-week AI sprint.
Nailed it. Perfect. That's a great answer. It makes perfect sense. Thank you for that.